Welcome everybody to the CNCF Tag Contributor Strategy General Meeting. As always, we are under the CNCF Code of Conduct, and I'm currently in the Code of Conduct Committee. So if you violate that, I will have to see you twice. So please don't do it. And let's go ahead and get started here. We put on the top, I actually put this further down, so either place we address it, which is the maintainer session. Let me link that up here as well. We have a draft. I think it's pretty much complete. Unless if people are okay with it, I'll go ahead and submit that today, partly so we can get the other panelists on there as speakers. Because I think Dawn, for example, is about to go on vacation. And because the way it works now in the new KubeCon system, if you haven't had experience with this, is we submit it and then I send you all a link and you all have to actually add yourselves to the session. I can't do it for you. So I think that's fine. When we discussed this last week at the governance meeting, we didn't have any thoughts on doing a Contrib Fest. And I don't think we would honestly be picked for one anyway, because we'd be trumped by individual projects that had code-related Contrib Fests. There's still, as I understand it, still only like satisfying a fourth of the requests for Contrib Fests. So, So, any discussion about the maintainer session? Or is that ready to go as far as people are concerned?
I think it looks good. I think it's ready to go from my standpoint.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Rian, Dawn, who else do we have on that?
Catherine, Josh, Ali.
Yeah, Ali won't end up signing up for it because he's on family leave. But if we can get everybody else on it, that would be nice.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, as somebody who's on the program committee for a different track, that I'm downvoting a number of prospective panels that don't seem to have any panelists. So let's not be in that situation. Okay, so then on to working group status checks, etc. Starting with mentoring. So,
hello everyone.
Yep.
So we've got all of our programs for the year are complete, including I think last month actually we finished up a Google season of Summer of Code. So we wound up with 14 completed sessions, programs there. I've linked to our stats sheet here. So we actually have wound up with a total of 144 mentees having gone through programs. That is including GSOD, GSOC, and LFX and Outreachy. So Outreachy, we had 2. Google Season of Docs, we had 2. Flux and Wasm Edge, although that's not really a mentoring program. And again, we're actually going to be moving that out of the mentoring remit next year. But we called it mentoring this year, so we're going to call those numbers. I didn't do all of the math. So we had still like a ton of equals. I'm just going to do the math here real quick. Of this through that. In LFX, we had 127 successful mentees go through the program. So term 3 just ended. I'm still dealing with a couple of stipend issues. One of the numbers that I was really hoping to hit was like a 5 or 6% failure rate across the program this year, and we were on track for that. But this last semester, We had 34 successful projects, but unfortunately we had 42 accepted, which means we had a failure rate, not a withdrawal rate, a failure rate of 8, which is about 20%, which has boosted our failure rate for the year to about 10%, which is not ideal. So next year we're going to be working on some ways of trying to sort that out and not only start well but finish well and get all those folks passing through. We were able to grow the program this year. I think we had about 100 last year, so growing from about 100 to about 150, even with the failure rate being somewhat high, we wound up, I think, mentoring more folks than we would have had we not grown the program. So, but I would like to try and make sure that we're growing it in a more sustainable way, because failing people out is it's a hard thing to do, and it's not nobody wants that. We want to I would rather grow more slowly than to grow with a 10% failure rate, right? So that's that. The other thing that we started with CNCF this term now is one of the things I want to do better is saying thank you to folks who are our mentors and the companies that are supporting them, because we while we pay all of our mentees, all of our mentors are expected to be gainfully employed by the companies who are either member companies of the CNCF or who depend on the. So I want to send out a small gift to all of our mentors, and we started that program now, and I can sort of say we were able to send out vouchers or coupons for CNCF training and certifications. So if folks are interested in how we're doing that, and the numbers, I'll keep track of who will actually sort of takes advantage of that after we've sent that out, because we've sent out individual coupons, so it's not like a bulk thing. It's that each individual person gets their own. The other thing I'd like to do next year is maybe start getting Credly badges and such for both mentors and mentees, so we can start touting people more in more public spots. So since the last time, actually, before I move on, is there any comments or questions or concerns about the program as it's run this year? Do you want to go into that before we go into the next couple of lines here?
No, but that's awesome work. That's some awesome numbers and progress, Nate. Too much.
Right on.
Very cool.
Thank you, and thank you, Jay. So since the last time we all met as a tag, there has been an update. Jay has stepped down from his chairship, but has graciously decided to remain on as an emeritus. So I will still be picking your brain, Jay. And Ali has been nominated and now accepted to be a co-chair of the working group. So a little bit of a change. I'm excited to get Ali in. And again, Jay, thank you for everything you've done, especially around getting folks in who are not, how can I say this? I hate using the term non-traditional folks because everybody is like, it doesn't make it, but it's getting folks in and trying to bring a more diverse set of folks into the mentoring program has been great. And not to mention all the work you've done on helping revamp the repo so that it is more accessible, more understandable. You inherited a bit of a, everything was everywhere, and now it's much more organized, and organizing and doing up all that documentation was a huge lift, and I really appreciate the work that you and Rion did to get that done as a part of your chairship. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate.
Thanks, Nate.
And just a heads up, if you want to watch the video, Diana and I were at Open Source Summit in Japan last week and did a talk about some of the statistical stuff that we've been doing. the effectiveness of our mentoring program, and it was a brilliant trip. I had a ton of fun, met a lot of folks, and since this is an overview, I won't get into too many details, but feel free to ping me afterwards if you're interested or have any questions. And then the last thing is the LF every year does a mentee showcase in early to mid-January. Now I've got an availability note here. I'm actually going to be on vacation between December 15th, no, the 16th and January 14th. So I'm taking the next 4 weeks off. I have pinged Ali. I know he's on vacation. I'm not on vacation. He's on family. So he's. I've asked him to work with Shalaya, who is one of the CNCF project managers, to help manage that in my absence. So I'm putting in a plan for folks to. I don't want to be the blocker along the way, is what I'm saying. But if you're interested, this is actually a really interesting program that they do. It's all of the mentees across all of the LFX mentorship programs are invited to give a talk about the project that they did through the LFX mentoring program. And we usually get quite a few, and it's usually run. It's an interesting seminar because it's run like over 48 hours, and it's all around the world. So we schedule it so that it's basically like it goes the whole time. It's kind of wild, a virtual thing. So it's worth it's a fun event. And again, the mentees then get like a. Hey, I did this talk on it. It's a portfolio piece, and they get to get a little bit more visibility for some of the work that they did. So, is there anything?
Yeah, one thing we were actually discussing this last is that we don't, because you're going to be out, and I realized actually I'm going to also be out at the time of the Mentee showcase, and Ali is out for family leave right now.
Right now, yeah.
I mean, I suppose you can actually at least work on the prep with making sure that all of the CNCF mentees know about the event.
Well, I don't have any details around when it's happening yet. And
really?
So what I've done is I've put the organizer.
Okay.
I've put the organizer in touch with Shalaya and Ali via email, and Shula will contact them to make sure that. So I'm expecting that they'll do that next week probably. So normally it isn't left quite this long, but this year for whatever reason it's okay. And there will be 1 week where I am actually out of contact via email and whatnot, but I'll be monitoring things. So if something happens, I'll be able to step in and help out. I don't mind doing that for something like this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we'll have to figure it out. I just wanted to make sure somebody from our mentoring working group was available to our mentees for the event. And I just realized that that's potentially going to be a real problem, more than we realized necessarily at the beginning of the week. So, okay. More follow-up. Before we go on with the readouts, Rian pointed out that we have 2 new people in the meeting, or at least new to some of us. And as a result, I'd like to do a round of introductions. So I'm Josh Burkus. I'm co-chair of this tag. I work for Red Hat. I've been doing contributor things for CNCF projects as long as there's been a CNCF. Mostly, primarily Kubernetes, etcd, and a couple of others. Let's move on to my other co-chair, Dawn.
Yeah, so I'm Dawn Foster. I am, as Josh mentioned, the other co-chair for Tag Contributor Strategy. Like Josh, I've been doing this whole contributor strategy thing for a pretty long time. I have some other roles. I'm director of data science at the Chaos Project, so that's kind of my full-time-ish gig, and I'm also on the board of Open UK, so I dabble in a little bit of here and there. How about Nate?
Hello, everyone. I'm Nate W. I am a what am I? Developer advocate. I almost went with my job title from like 2 jobs ago for some reason. More coffee. So I am a developer advocate with the CNCF, and in that capacity, I do 2 things primarily. I'm a technical writer, which means I help our projects organize and write their documentation, usually in that order, because I don't scale all that well myself. And I also help run the mentoring programs across the CNCF with copious amounts of help from quite a few folks on this call. And then when I'm not doing those 2 things, I'm a generalist. I help with internet plumbing and all that sort of stuff with the CNCF. So it's a fun, interesting gig. Let's move on to one of the new folks, Matt Young.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Young. I haven't been to Tech Contributor Strategy in a few years, or about a year. I started a new day job and had to go dark for a little bit. But I put a couple of things at the end of the agenda. I wasn't sure if this was the right meeting or if a sub meeting was the right place to come, but there are a couple of discussions happening at TOC level, and then some things happening at Tag Observability that I wanted to bring to Contributor Strategy at the suggestion of Josh. And a few others from KubeCon. I'm one of the co-chairs for Tag Observability, so that's me. I don't want to take too much time on intros.
Okay.
And it's nice to meet you all.
Yeah. Oh,
Hi.
you want to
I
pick
can
someone
go
else?
next.
Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
I can go next. I am the tech lead for Tag Contributor Strategy, and my day job is I'm working for the Linux Foundation as a program manager. And one of the things I'm doing is helping sorting out tags and working groups for the CNCF. So it might be good that we discuss what your points at the end of the meeting. And let's do new person, Carl.
Hi there. I'm not sorry about not coming off video. I'm sick, so I didn't want to be wiping my nose during the meeting. But I'm an engineering manager and UI engineer. I was the manager for both Octant and Cartographer, which is where I met Don at VMware a while ago. But I have a passion for accessibility and saw that that is something that you're working on. And so I thought I would come and pay attention to what's going on.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go. Hi, I'm Noah. I've also been here a very long time, for, I don't know, 7 years now, I think, something like that. I run the non-code initiative here within this, and I've been doing work in Kubernetes and trying to help out the tag for a very long time. My day job is as a TPM at Oracle, where I am ostensibly enabling other people to become contributors, which lines up very closely with the mission of this tag. I will pass it to, last but not least, over to Jay.
Thanks, Noah. Kia ora koutou. My name's Jay. I help out with a couple of working groups like mentoring and deaf and hard of hearing and higher ed. Well, not official working group yet, but I think it's tracking well. Yeah, basically anything to support with around contributor growth. I also work with II, which is a small company based largely in New Zealand. A lot of the team contribute to Kate's Conformance project and API Snoop and those things. Yeah, my day job is working with a few organizations around economic and community development and basically working with people to support them into meaningful career paths. So awesome to see you all again. It feels like it's been ages for some of it. So cool, good to meet you with Matt and Kara as well.
I think that was all of us.
Yep.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Some faces are new, some not.
Okay, so let's finish the working group readout relatively rapidly so that we can actually get on to the other business. So next up would be contributor growth. And the only readout we have there is from non-code. Noah?
Yeah, we had no meeting November, December, so nothing exciting to report there. Non-code is going well. Speaking on behalf of Noah there, I've been to his meetings. They're running great. If you want to add on when I'm done, and then about the panel talk, I'm going to prepare for that, assuming it would be accepted. Over to Noah.
The biggest thing to report from non-code is that we are figuring out exactly how large in scope and how complicated this project is going to end up being. And we are still wrapping our heads around it.
Yeah. I mean, my general advice is start small, get something done, and then add to it. But
we've got, I believe, 3 completely separate initiatives under the non-code umbrella right now.
what are those?
Those,
Yeah.
I'm like, I should probably tell people. Those would be the advisory document, which was part of the original spurring of recreating the initiative. That is a contributor ladder function that Kim has been running with, and also there is a research arm that Sophia Vargas has been running with.
Okay, cool.
We have it.
The if you can, if there's any issues or anything else you can link in the notes, please do.
Happy to.
Okay. Rian, the panel talk you're talking about is ours, yeah? The maintainer talk, or is there another talk?
Correct. No, I just
Okay.
kind of noted my involvement. I'm there. I'm with you.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. Dawn, should I do governance? Because I don't think, did you make the last meeting for governance?
I did,
You-
yeah.
You did. Okay, so you want to do governance?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we mostly went through some to-do items. I think that the next thing that we really need to get done from a governance perspective is a kind of a lightweight not really a self-assessment. So we'll take the self-assessment, make it much smaller so that it's really just some pre-work for the projects that need a governance review. Because we're not quite ready to do the self-assessment because of the matriculation process and some other things that are going on. But the problem that we have doing the governance reviews is that we spend hours just clicking on things and trying to find stuff. And the project should really be doing that work for us. So that was something that Ali was going to put together, but now he's on family leave. So I think when he gets back. And then my plan is once we have that, I want to kickstart some of the reviews that we have in the backlog, like telepresence and a few others that have been just sort of lingering. But I think once we have that, it's going to make it a whole lot easier to do the governance reviews. And then I don't know, Josh, if you want to talk about the matriculation process. I really haven't been that involved in that.
Oh, yeah, just mostly that, and this will actually affect contributor growth as well. The recommendations on the new sort of checklists for project matriculation are now in the hands of the TOC. I expect that probably we'll see some action around that around the next TOC offsite, which is sometime in the first half of next year. And then that will affect a lot of things like our governance review, et cetera. We'll have to revise the governance review to make it match up with that. Now, mind you, a bunch of the recommendations of the checklist came straight out of our governance review, so I don't expect to need to revise it too much, but that's coming. And then we'll just sort of want everything to sync up. Okay. Since we don't have Catherine here, I'll just read her notes from Deaf Hard of Hearing Accessibility Working Group. They're in an effort to recruit freelance interpreters because apparently, because sourcing interpreters has been a major problem for events. Down to the point of events saying, hey, we have the money, but we don't know who to hire. which is understandable. They're in talking with the KubeCon staff in order to make KubeCon more accessible to people with hearing disabilities, based on their experience of KubeCon Chicago. And are hoping to have KubeCon Paris be much more accessible to people with that disability and with some other disabilities as well, such as mobility. They're working on creating a new community group through the CNCF in order to reach more of the deaf community that exists within the CNCF itself. And they're helping people with scholarship submissions. Website
Good.
infrastructure. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I've got a quick question before we go on. Is the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Working Group expanding its scope into general accessibility as well, or is that what I'm hearing, or is it
that is the plan?
Okay.
The difference is that right now, effectively, if you look at who's in that working group, it's mostly deaf and hard of hearing people, and so that's what they're
Okay.
focused on. That said, a couple of their members are also mobility disabled, and so it's been kind of natural for them to branch out in that way. But if they had the volunteers, their plan is to branch out into other forms of accessibility.
Okay. I have somebody
or
in mind that I was
accessibility for
thinking of
other
trying to-
populations. Yeah.
Yeah, I have somebody in mind I'm going to try and recruit
Yeah.
then, because if it's she works in accessibility here in BC.
Yeah.
So that might be a good fit for her.
And-
So I will see what I can do.
Yeah, and obviously some branching out will end up requiring sort of spawning subgroups, right? Because if, for example, somebody wants to tackle the issue of sight disabled folks, then that would require a separate meeting, because it wouldn't work out really well. Oh, hey, Catherine. Sorry, I just did the readout of your section because I didn't know when you were going to join. So,
Sorry.
Nate was just asking a question whether or not the deaf and hard of hearing working group was looking at other areas of accessibility, and my answer was yes. But right now it's staffed to basically take on deaf and hard of hearing issues and not really other things.
Yeah, I mean, like the idea is that like so I know that someone reached out and regarding help creating guidance for projects to make their projects more accessible, and it was going more towards the blind and visually impaired. So, and then there is like someone at VMware who is blind, so it's like I think like once you start having those conversations, like and she was asking about like how did you get started and blah blah. So the goal is hopefully to have these kind of different groups kind of start building. And yeah, Matt, I think you sent her my way, right? So
That was me. Hi, Catherine.
oh, there you are, Tara.
I joined today.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I think yeah, that's kind of the whole goal, right? You lead with one is an example, and then more pop up, and then people help each other. And so I was really excited to for Kara to reach out and have that idea.
I'm thrilled to help out wherever I can. And yeah, I have some experience with accessibility testing across the various parts of accessibility. So, and I've worked with a blind tester. So Catherine and I talked with Joyce. Joyce Oshida is a blind tester at VMware, and she said she'd be willing to help. So I'm happy to build materials that will help kind of bootstrap projects for maintainers, kind of with the information that they need when they get started, is what I was looking at.
Yeah. It's all needed, everything. So it's good to see these different efforts for sure.
So I'll briefly say one of my agenda items was to bring Kara's recent talk from a few weeks ago at Tag Observability. So I'm just moving that up into the notes under the right place, it seems like.
Okay. Anything else on accessibility?
Do you want me to go at the end or speak here because it's kind of tied in?
Yeah,
with
no,
this-
let's get
with the
the
talk
website
track?
infrastructure stuff out of the way first. So that's just briefly that's going to be me and Rian this week. One is I wanted to give everybody a warning. We have a bunch of shared documents that are in a folder that belongs to a single individual on the CNCF staff, which is potentially a future problem. And so we are going to move it to a group account folder. And I'll actually be doing that because I'm the only one who has the permissions to move things between those two folders. Including weirdly Rian, who even though he's on the staff, somehow can't do it. We've tried. So we're trying to actually move all of these documents and not copy them, so that we don't break any links from anywhere. However, until I go through all of the folders and all of the documents, I can't know for sure what's going to happen. So if we do break links, I will just let people know about it. But the end of the year now seems like a good time because people aren't necessarily using those documents heavily.
Is that the same location that we would be archiving old notes to?
Yes. Yeah, you want to archive old notes to the group control folder. Hold on. And the folders are named slightly different. So hold on.
Can you share links to me? Make sure I have the right ones.
Yeah, hold on. There's actually an issue for this, which is probably the best place to have the links.
Awesome. Tag me there.
Yeah. So there we are. Consolidate shared G drives. Right here. And then I'm linking that from the notes. So I will be doing that over the next week. And I'm also going to warn specific working groups who actually use the shared documents heavily, such as accessibility, because their stuff may be moving. So basically, so yeah, so the one that's been heavily used by accessibility working group is named CNCF Tag Contributor Strategy, belongs to Taylor in the CNCF and not to any group account. We looked at to see if we could just transform that into being owned by a group account and could not, even with Taylor helping us with it. So the other one, and these were both created at the same time too, annoyingly enough. Or is it the other one, which is actually owned by a group account and is the one that we should be using in the future, is called Tag Contributor Strategy without the CNCF on the front of it. I don't own either, so changing the name to call them like new and old is not something I can do. So
I think once one is empty.
Yeah, once one is empty, right. So eventually what's going to happen is after the upcoming week, if you drop into a shared CNCF folder and you find it completely empty, that tells you you're in the wrong one. So, okay.
A good indicator.
Yeah. So
you can also just, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go
Leave
ahead.
an empty folder that says you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
But we can just have like one Google Doc, like, and then with a link. So, because I don't know, maybe people don't know, where it
Mhm.
with a link to the actual.
Mhm.
Because I don't really think I know where the other is. I mean, there's an issue. I would have to look for the issue.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. And so now, let's go over the new business. And unless we've missed something in the readout, but we've got about 20 minutes left. We already talked about the maintainer session. Do we want to do anything for getting the word out this week? Do we have anything that's new that we could actually ask social media to post? It's before we just merge something, but otherwise I'll just look and we'll discuss this on Slack. I mean, obviously not that many people are reading social media right now, but it's worth keeping it up.
And we actually skipped over Matt's agenda item because he kind of moved it up because it was related
Oh,
to
he did?
accessibility.
Oh, okay. I was okay.
Yeah, I had four, and that was
I'm
one
reading
of
a
them. So I
cached
just
version. I'm reading a cached version. So, oh, okay. Got it. So you see, yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I was looking at the previous version. And I didn't see that you moved it up. Because
I
cache
did
is
it
lag.
after you guys talked about it. Just to
Okay.
I thought,
So yeah. So
Sorry.
let's start with that one first then. So
sure.
tag observability talk.
Yeah, well, so Kara's on the line, so she might be a better person to speak to it, but I wanted to bring it here as one of an example of a trio of working groups. One that's being launched, that's the AI one, out of the discussion and the Q&A, which I've linked the details to from Kara's talk. There was, some interest in that and some subsequent conversations about, how would we say, hey, for other folks that are interested in this topic, and in short, in the observability and data analysis space of the CNCF ecosystem, you've got user interfaces that try to, unbiased, but they really convey some very advanced concepts, right? And are quite complex. And if we can make those accessible, or at least if we can enable those projects to understand how and where they are accessible, or where they might one day be accessible, to be positive on it, it can help the projects. If you're shopping for things in the CNCF in terms of building portfolios, you might want to know what to look for and how do I even understand what's accessible because I sell to governments or I sell to academic or anything funded by government research dollars, etc. So what's the best place we were thinking for that to happen? Certainly we can launch a working group out of tag observability, but this, while we're using that domain, I think because it's expedient and we can, and that's kind of where this cropped up. I did think this had broader appeal, and there was obviously work in flight around accessibility. And so I suggested that Kara reach out, and I wanted to follow up with that and just kind of say, hey, this happened, and here's some of the details, and this is an active thing. Kara has a working doc for a working group charter potentially, but again, before we just did sort of a, well, I'll leave it there. And so we were looking for guidance on how could Kara and folks that Kara might bring along contribute in a way where it's not in isolation, or it's not duplicative, or it's not, multiple hands of this many-headed hydra called the CNCF ecosystem, not being in concert.
Well, I think it makes sense to kind of, because like the page itself, the tags page, we have an accessibility section, and we build it out specifically with deaf and hard of hearing being one section, and knowing that, or hoping, right, more than anything, that other sections would be added, right? So I think that it fits right in.
It's all kind of happened contemporaneously. I've been a longtime fan from afar of this tag, so I had seen the tag contributor strategy meeting from October, where I think you were talking about that exactly. That exact thing, and then some number of weeks later, Kara came and showed up at Tag Observability, and so it all just, I think some of the buzz around KubeCon and the outputs of
Yeah,
your
so because
existing
it makes
efforts.
sense, like
We're
that,
part of that.
everything that is around accessibility should be in one spot, right? Like versus like having to find it everywhere. I think the angle is slightly different because like what Kara was saying, like focusing specific on the products of making it, but it's like all part of the same thing. And I hope that once you start with that, maybe people are passionate about like, well, making conferences and projects more accessible for contributors, and like what, because like our focus is slightly different, but it's all part of the same thing. And I think like as people start joining, and as like blind people start seeing that there is that initiative, I'm hoping that they're saying like, well, we would love to see this and this and this, and it grows, right? But yeah, I think like it should all live in the accessibility side. There are so many different angles to it, but it should be all on one side,
agree.
on one page. Yeah.
And kind of like the AI working group that we're launching is sort of the domain, the subject matter of the working group bridges the domains of both tag runtime and tag observability. I think here, some of the stuff that Kara presented to tag observability, like I said, probably best belongs in the place you're already building it out. But there is, but I think we can help facilitate working with potentially vendors in the observability sector, by nature of the tag's ability to bring these groups together, right? So do you suggest that were this to evolve into a working group? Right now, it's some ideas. It might best be hosted by this tag, or we would do it like AI, where it's sort of like both tags are saying like, yep, we're all for this. Like this whole working group concept around not having a proliferation of tags when really working groups that bridge tags or that are relevant to multiple tags. This case, and that's sort of, so this is a concrete example of the more general thing I've got as the last link. There's a work in process discussion that I haven't actually posted yet, but sort of all of this is germane. The other two, the privacy one and the others, might be a little quicker to bounce through or to follow up with later. I know we have limited time, but what do you think about the first one, and then what the next steps might be?
When you say the first one, like, sorry, like now.
So with the accessibility for cloud native concept, right? I talked about it a little bit at the TLC meeting last 2 weeks ago as well. I think it's where the CNCF can really differentiate itself and really lead the way. With open source just being, increasingly as a base case accessible, right? And it kind of sets the bar, and I think we have an opportunity to set the bar higher, closer to where it should be. But again, Kara is an expert. I don't want to speak for Kara, but.
No, it's okay. I'm just listening because the process is relatively new to me, and if a working group is where it should be, then great. I can come up with a document for that. If it's working on something else, then that's fine as well. But point me in a direction and I'll go. But yeah, let me know what makes the most sense for sure.
Because I think the question is like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Kara.
Oh no, I was just going to reiterate that like what you said, the work that you have done has been a little bit more human-centric, bringing folks into conferences, like trying to make the conferences themselves accessible. So having translators at KubeCon and things like that for deaf and hard of hearing, which is amazing. And from what I understand was very successful. And from my perspective, the angle I'm taking is making projects themselves more accessible so that the actual code work is accessible, so that when those projects are then adopted by companies, those companies who have to sell them don't then have to go back to the projects. It's something to, and spreading that knowledge to your project maintainers about accessibility, what needs to be done. There's a kind of a slew of information there. So that's the angle I'm coming from, is how to make the projects themselves more accessible, so that we're not generating projects that are known, that are kind of known bad, that are known that are going to create more problems as they move forward.
So I think we all agree that, oops, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we should help projects plan for their success, but I'm going to go.
Yeah. So I think we all agree that the information should be all in the same place, right? But then the question is like, where should the working group be aligned? Because yes, it's true, if you're focusing on the product itself, it's not really contributor strategy, right? It like that kind of the focus of it, because accessibility is so broad. Is like, how do you make like the community more accessible, projects, conference, and so on, and how do you make the products more accessible? There are those two sides, right?
Yeah.
But they're all accessibility. Yeah.
I had thought contributor strategy because the main like actionable thing out of that, what might come out of this, other than just knowledge sharing and recommendations, is so you're a contributor, or so you've just joined the CNCF, or so you're preparing to enter the sandbox or make an application. Like the kit that the contributor strategy has, like templates on how to start projects and things. If that just had some of this accessibility stuff, that might be the output of what Kara's wants to focus on, and is bringing others and bringing friends with her. That might be a good vector to so that again, it's just out of the box. Project maintainers and contributors kind of have a good sane place to start without them having to themselves do a learning exercise and then deriving all of that. So I think that was the other reason to bring it to TAG contributor strategy. That you curate guides and guidance, good practices, things like that. And the same is true for the other two topics, by the way, around privacy and the other one.
Well, it makes sense to me. I don't know, Josh, Dawn. I mean, like, I think every time there's like a good idea that is important, is going to make it more, like, help other people, like either participate in the community or use the projects. I mean, like, how can you say no? Right? I mean, like, it's yeah, hell yeah, we have to do this. And it's like, and we have the deaf and hard of hearing group already. So it kind of, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree that like making the projects more accessible itself is not necessarily a TAG contributor strategy activity, but I don't know where else it would go. And I think if we try to separate it from the deaf and hard of hearing and the other accessibility initiatives that we have, then I think that it would make it harder to be successful. So from that standpoint, I almost think it would be better to kind of combine it with some of the deaf and hard of hearing stuff, even though the product stuff might not be a natural fit for TAG contributor strategy. I don't know, Josh, what do you think?
Well, I mean, if we look at it more broadly, right, is TAG contributor strategy is intended to provide help to the projects, in terms of particularly in terms of the projects advancing and growing. And from a project perspective, the accessibility aspects of enabling contributors are not really different from the accessibility aspects of enabling users. Do you follow me? Because most of your contributors are also users. So like, for example, you're not necessarily going to get a lot of blind contributors if your project is completely unusable by a blind user. So from that perspective, I would rather have it in one place, just because the projects are going to see it as one thing, even if we see slightly different concerns.
And also, like, my hope is really that is kind of the entry point, right? It's like, okay, now we have like a group that is focusing on the visually impaired. That particular group now is focusing on products, but then they're seeing like, oh, I mean, like, we would also love to participate more in the community, and then like it grows from there, right? Like, so, because once you see that what other people are doing and how other people with disabilities are suddenly being able to participate, because it's like it's good for everyone. I mean, like, it's like, if you are able to come to the conference and so on, like, it's so important, like, after, like, at some point, right, it may extend to something that is more similar to what we're seeing in the deaf and hard of hearing right now.
I agree. And what I really like about this particular thing is, in addition to everything you just said around, why it's the right thing to do from a values perspective, one of the points that Kara made to the TAG observability that I think resonates here is that it also makes fiscal sense. Like, you know, if you've ever been on the buying side or the acquisition side of using this project versus that, or this product versus that, accessibility becomes like a major differentiator. You make two piles. If it's not accessible, I can't use it, even if it's better. So I think there's that angle around the, you know, it's nice to have like both aspects, both the fiscal business side as well as the values, which I think are the same, but some people don't, and that's okay too, right?
I'm also with keeping all things in one place rather than splitting into different things. I think you're going to have a more powerful impact if you keep the people together in one place with several missions.
Cool.
You're muted.
Would
You're
it make
muted,
sense
Josh.
to
Yeah. So a suggestion for next steps here is we're going to go forward. Let's, you know, spare you the overhead of creating a new working group, and instead sort of at some point share with the TOC that the accessibility working group is de facto now sort of jointly overseen by Tag Contributor Strategy and Tag Observability. And then look at what logistically we need to do to make the working group useful in these other areas to allow you to do work and build out these other areas, you know. I mean, obviously there's the contributor site in terms of adding advisory content, but you know, you may want to have an additional meeting and all kinds of other things. And we can arrange all of those.
Sounds great.
Cool. Okay. So we'll follow up on Slack and by email and elsewhere. Cool. Okay. Okay, so we are. Where did the privacy thing go? Did you decide to take it off the agenda, Matt?
Nope, it's at the very bottom bullet, second one. I had a follow-up from KubeCon TOC tag chairs and then sub bullets under there.
Okay.
It's discussion 1218.
Yeah.
These are just some conversations that we had, and again, things that were
Okay.
thoughts that were contemporaneous
Yeah.
that I've just captured for our discussions and wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. The
In a similar vein, just you know, contributors, you know, might want to have, or we might want to set up new projects for success by kind of having some core foundational knowledge, so that when they're writing what they're writing, you know, when they're creating, it has these things in mind. And Sophia Vargas's talk from KubeCon was excellent and went deep here. But it's not just contributors; it's also, you know, end users and vendors, right? The same sorts of things that we've been talking about is, you know, a working group or a work stream that generates some collateral that can be cast in all three directions, in you know, in audience appropriate ways. You know, vendors, and contributors. So again, I thought some of the guidelines and boilerplate stuff we have might be a good home for some of these ideas, but right now they're just my reading notes and from a particular book. And I talked with Sophia about it, and you know, I would want to solicit input and feedback, right? And then the 1219 is of the same ilk, but it's more around that shared vocabulary we talked about.
yeah. Okay. So there's two different things. I mean, one thing you'll see, I've already commented on the shared vocabulary one.
Oh, cool.
And I'm going to say bluntly, my comment is around, I actually hate the particular book. It's a book I very strongly. It's a book I very strongly disagree with.
I want to be really clear. I am not saying this.
So,
I'm saying I read a book. And what do you all think?
No, it's and the reason why I already had a preformed opinion is you are not the first person to bring up that book in this tag. Just because I feel like it's kind of reductionist towards how it regards projects, and my experience is that projects are always in motion. If you follow me. They are always becoming something else.
Yeah.
Right.
But at the same time, I was looking for a place to start. Like, you know, like,
and
or at least in the absence of not having
a,
or maybe there is a place to start, and we've already kind of vetted everything you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree. I just, it's one of the only books that I read that kind of had a clearly articulated model as a starting point.
Yeah. Well, part of it is the CNCF already has a model. which is a big part of what this tag has been building up over the last
Right, the
I don't
maturity
know, 4
model.
years. The
I'm
maturity
thinking more of
model combined with the model of project roles that's expressed through our templates.
Right, but I'm looking for something that's more quantitative and activity based, something that we can kind of like look at projects broadly, you know, while protecting privacy, kind of like we talked about for the landscape
Yeah.
graph. That's actually ultimately, you know, been I've renewed some efforts around there, but when we build these tools, you know, what are the
Mhm.
things that we want to go look for? Whereas the existing maturity model is fantastic, but I feel like it's more qualitative and more
Yeah.
not wrong, by the way. In fact, I think it's probably the right place to start. But as people build tools, I see a lot of tools coming out that look at all the wrong things and draw what is, you know, look, here's a graph, but it's totally wrong in foundational model. So I wanted to start a discussion around, like, I don't think that the Stripe book is the model, but
Yeah.
I'd like to have a conversation about what one might be. So again, we don't have a lot of its discussions being informed by things that are just plain wrong on the precepts. And I thought some working group under tag contributor strategy might be the right place for that, but
Yeah.
if it's not, I can take it elsewhere. I can't wait to read your comments. Thank you for commenting on them. It's been I thought Don might have some ideas here too, given the various hats you wear. And I've been reading some of the things you've been doing as well there.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it a little bit more. I'll be honest, I haven't read the book. But
Yeah.
I can think about other ways that we're thinking about things. But we're
Cool.
over time,
Yeah.
so I do
Yeah.
have to stop. So happy holidays,
Yeah.
everybody.
Thank you.
More follow-up to come.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers all.